The introduction to this video is a bit unconventional, and that's totally fine. Because what is conventional about F1? The sport we all love, taking twists and turns every single season on and off the track. It's perfect. And is perfectly poised to be one of the greatest F1 seasons that you could possibly imagine. And to walk you through, Shavin and Abhishek will be talking about this episode, the F1 experts of the Grandstand podcast, so to say. And they will be talking about 4 topics. Number 1, hammer time at the Prancing Horses stable. Number 2, the new drivers. Then we'll be talking about the World Championship and the Constructors' Championship. And finally, ending it with the FIA rules. Are they a bit too strict? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is by watching this video. So I'm going to go ahead and play. Enjoy.
All right, Shavin. So, new season of F1 almost upon us.
And we are going to do something similar to what we did with our first episode for the year. Looking forward to what we are most interested to see for the new Formula One season. And the big one. We'll start off with the big one because we did not have this conversation when it happened because everyone else was. And we thought, you know what, it's just more or less the same conversation. So we thought we'll wait till it actually happens. And now it has happened. Hamilton is at Ferrari. And it's crazy, right? I think there was a fan that put this comment on one of the YouTube videos, which basically sums it up. He said, he or she said, we've had almost a year to get ready for this, but it still seems surreal. And I think that perfectly sums up this entire thing because to see Hamilton, you know, just as a F1 fan, to see Hamilton wearing the red of Ferrari and driving the car, it's something, it's incredible to see. And that's just for a normal F1 fan. For you being a Scuderia Ferrari fan and someone who's experienced the low points thanks to Hamilton, now seeing him driving your team's car, what's that like?
Yeah, it's definitely a very, I don't want to say bittersweet, but it's very lot of like mixed emotions seeing Hamilton as a Ferrari fan joining. I'm personally not a Hamilton hater. I know I've always thought that he is arguably the greatest driver that we've ever seen. But you know, obviously when you remember like Germany 2018, like races like that where Hamilton you know, because I mean I'm a huge Vettel fan. Vettel is probably one of my favorite drivers, if not my favorite driver of all time. So just seeing the pain that Hamilton has caused to Ferrari fans over the last couple of years, it is a bit weird to see him in the colors. But I mean, we all know that he was a Ferrari. He has been a long-standing Ferrari fan, and he's always wanted to drive in those colors. And he's even recently he said the move was just. It wasn't like a thought out move. It was just off gut feeling. He got the opportunity to drive a Ferrari, and he thought that he needed to do this. So from the perspective of like the whole marketing aspect of Hamilton coming, I think it is very interesting because to see him in those colors. From a racing aspect, I think we've discussed this. I think I have a different perspective to a lot of people of what's going to happen with the racing aspect of it. But the actual move, I think, is very interesting. It's one of the biggest moves, or not the biggest move that we've seen in the driver market in a very long time.
I think we can say that it is the biggest move, right? I mean, I think the age of social media has made it the biggest move because I mean, I think when Vettel moved, when Schumacher moved, it was also big moves. But this is the first time that the most successful driver in F1 is moving to the most successful team. With Schumacher and Vettel, even Prost, they came in, you know, as accomplished champions, even Alonso, but not the most successful. But in this case, this is the guy who has achieved everything, you know, everything in the sport. And now he's just fulfilling a dream of his to drive for Ferrari. And also, you know, social media will obviously put it to another level. And rightly so, I think, you know, it's a massive move. It's really, really significant. You spoke about the racing, and I think we can actually get into that a bit. What we think might happen, not only with Leclerc and Hamilton, but this season promises to be an exciting one. And one of the main reasons is you have a lot of new driver lineups, 5 rookies coming into onto the grid, 6 if you count Lawson, who has not had a rookie season. He's of course raced 11 times, I think, but he's not had a full rookie season. So lots of changes happening on the grid. Even not talking about the drivers. If you talk about personnel in teams, you have a lot of people moving up and down the grid, in administrative roles and whatnot. So, what do you think this season can produce in terms of on track action, off track development? What's your idea? Let's start with the Hamilton Leclerc discussion. I think you have. I don't think it's a controversial take because let's face it, Hamilton is walking to Leclerc's team. This team has been built on Leclerc. It's well known, well documented, and it's a different culture. It's completely different to what he's used to. He has been backed by Mercedes. He has been driven. He has been in English teams for his career, and now he's moving to a completely different. It's a cultural shift. Okay, so what do you think? How do you think this plays out?
Well, I think if you look at Hamilton like in 2024, I think you can't. The best way to put it is I think he is declining, right? He's not at his absolute peak that he was, in 2021, in that 2022 around. Yeah, 2021 was the fight with Max, right? I believe.
Max,
yeah, 2021. And that I think was, you can argue that was probably his peak. Like he was driving at his absolute best, and the years before that he was really good. I think now he's declining. He did win. He has won races now. He did win in Silverstone. You saw, so when he has his peaks, I think he can still drive at that level. But I don't know if he can consistently be the best driver on the grid the way he was in the years before when he was at his peak, right? And like you said, he's coming into Leclerc's team. I know there's a lot of hype around the move that people, British media especially, are overhyping it in a way that he's going to come and he's going to dominate at Ferrari. Leaving my bias towards Leclerc's side, right? If Hamilton were to go to, if he was to go to McLaren, right? Let's say, for example, if you take Piastri out, or I don't know who McLaren think their best driver is, but let's assume that you take Piastri out and you put Hamilton into that McLaren seat, I would assume that Lando Norris would dominate him, or he would beat him at least, right?
Yeah.
And here, for one thing, Hamilton is coming into drive with who I believe is probably the second best driver in F1 right now, because you can't put anyone over Max, but probably the only one I think with potential to beat Verstappen on the grid.
Yeah.
And he's coming into his team, and he's also coming into a team that doesn't have that British racing culture, right? So it's got a completely different sort of, the Ferrari way of doing things. They think their way is the best way of doing things. Whether that's right or wrong is probably the results show whether that's right or wrong, but it's something that Hamilton will have to adjust to. And for one, so I think the racing culture is going to be something he'll need to adjust to. But I think on track, just purely on pace, I don't think he's going to be very competitive with Leclerc the way people think he is going to be, at least at the start. Maybe he'll grow into the car and he'll get better. But I think, especially when it comes to qualifying, I don't think he's going to be that competitive with him. So there will be races where he'll probably finish ahead of him. But I think overall as a season, I think he'll be competitive. But with Leclerc, I think he's not going to be super competitive. The one positive to this, I think, will be the fact that I think it'll push Leclerc to have a teammate like him, and that would probably help the team. But in my opinion, I don't think he's going to be very competitive. What do you think?
I mean, for me, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Leclerc beats Hamilton because, like I said, the odds are stacked in Leclerc's favor. But I think Hamilton. The thing is, you're right. He's probably on the decline, but still Hamilton's not so best. He's still pretty up there, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that it's below par. He's a damn good driver, and of course, with age, your skills will decline. That's unfortunate. That's just how things go. But I agree with what you say. I think Leclerc will definitely have the upper hand over Hamilton because Leclerc's anyway fast. And over the lap, I think qualifying you might be right because Russell is a very fast qualifier and he completely destroyed Hamilton. But you saw in the race where Hamilton was at times stronger than Russell, And Leclerc's race pace, it has improved. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I think last season he made a significant stride. He was really good, very consistent, and that was one of not the criticisms, but the things that people felt he should improve.
True.
That
Yeah.
he was really lacking compared to even Carlos, if truth
Yeah.
be told at times. And he was really good last season. I think Charles had his best season in Formula One last year. He was very good,
Yeah.
very consistent over the entire season. But Hamilton's known for being, this consistent racer and this brilliant wheel-to-wheel racer, and the guy who can be, who is very consistent. And Hamilton's also coming in with loads of experience, and that will help him. So it'll be an interesting battle. I still put my cards. I'll put my how do you say that? I mean, I back Leclerc, but I think it'll be a bit more closer than what you think personally. But
Okay.
I guess we'll find out. It'll be if Hamilton beats Leclerc, then
If he beats him over this season, I think
there's a
that would be
conversation to
really
be had
indicative
about.
about Leclerc. I think
The thing
my
is,
opinion.
Leclerc has performed well. I mean, against all his teammates, like he beat Vettel. Over the 2 seasons. He was better than Carlos, although it was very close. I think it was something like if you take the percentage of points scored, it was on like 53 to 47, so not too bad, not that much of a difference. But it's an interesting battle, something that people will pay attention to throughout the season to see how that goes. That's Ferrari, but that's not the only team with a new lineup. Like we said, there's a bunch of new lineups, coming in to this season. Yeah. I'm going to ask you, which driver pairing are you looking forward to seeing?
From the new ones.
I mean, you can probably consider the entire grid, but seeing that we've seen what the Aston Martin lineup, what more or less they can produce, and similar to McLaren. Yeah. McLaren has an interesting situation there, but we've had some kind of a spoiler to what things might be like for this season. But the rest, they're all new. So which team are you looking at in terms of competitiveness amongst the teammates?
The one that I'm most interested, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of pairings I'm interested about, but I think the one that'll be really interesting to watch will be Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. Yeah. I think, because I think it's gonna go one of two ways. Either, so in this, I think what's most likely is I think Russell will probably be much faster at the start, because obviously Kimi is still very very raw, so to speak. We know he's quick, he goes all out, but he's still inexperienced. And Russell, obviously, I think Russell probably had his best season in Formula One last year. He was better than Lewis, and he was much better in qualifying, and he's got to grips with the car. He's the main driver now, very clearly at that team. Kimi is touted to be like a generational talent, right? So if he comes
the next Max Verstappen kind of scenario there.
Exactly. And if he comes in, and even for a few races, if he can out qualify George, or if he can just beat him over a race, in terms of race pace, that'll be such a boost for him. I mean, no one's expecting Antonelli to win the championship this season, but if he really hits the ground running, I mean, he could become the main driver in that team over the next 1 or 2 years. So
if he does win the championship, if Antonelli wins the championship, I think
that'll be great. That'll be ridiculous if he wins the championship in his first year. But even if he just hits the ground running, and if he can challenge Russell in that car, that'll be a good sign of things to come for Merc. But if I had to pick one pairing, that would be it for me. But what about you?
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think Antonelli, I don't think they will expect too much of him. I think this season will be more of a preparation season for 2026, where the regulations change. I think we spoke about it quite a bit, but there's a massive regulation change. And like I said before, if the rumors are to be believed, and usually they are correct, Merc have got a very good engine, and the engine is going to dictate the success of the new regulations. So in that case, they would like to prepare Kimi as much as possible before going into a potential championship fight next season. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think he's got so much hype around him, and rightly so. I think because he's achieved a lot at such a young age.
Yeah.
For me personally, there's a bunch. I mean, obviously we have 5 rookies coming in from F2, all of them who are very talented. You have the F2 champion, Portaleto, coming in. The first time in 3 years that the F2 champion gets a direct promotion to Formula One, which wasn't the case. Unfortunately, Felipe Dragovic and Theo Porsche still don't have seats. But it's unfortunately how F1 works. I am very interested, but unfortunately, it could be a case of a battle at the back of the grid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested to see how Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz go ahead. Because Alex, kind of rediscovered himself. He's been another driver that came through this whole not generational talent, but very skilled driver when he was young.
Yeah.
A lot of the drivers like George, Charles Leclerc, and all these Lando, like the guys who are younger than him, said that Alex was their hero. He was like the karting champion, the guy who used to win all the races, right?
Yeah.
And he came to Red Bull, probably didn't have the greatest of times, which is more or less the case for every Max Verstappen teammate. But that's just how it is. But he's kind of rediscovered himself at Williams, and he's had some brilliant performances. Yeah. But at the same time, he's also not had the toughest of teammates. I mean, with all due respect, it's just the reality of the matter. And now he's getting a very good driver, a driver who had his best season as well. A lot of drivers had their best season last year, if truth be told. But Carlos is someone who comes into the team a bit disappointed that he's lost out on a championship-winning car, potentially. Yeah. But he still wants to, prove that he is very good. And it'll be a challenge for Alex. It'll definitely be something a bit more of a challenge than what he's had at Williams. And it'll be interesting to see how that battle actually plays out. Like I said, the only problem is they'll probably have to do that battling at the back of the grid because they've had a lot of damage costs, Williams, and GM Swaus himself has come out and said that they'll have to limit, their development of the car for this year, which could be also a good thing because they can put all their money in the 2026 car. They are backed by Mercedes as well, so they could potentially have a good engine. And they are getting money in with the Sainz transfer as well. Santander, who is the sponsor for Sainz, he's coming in. They're coming in as well, so they are probably going to get more money. And that could help them to get a better car for 2026. And we saw that in 2014, where the regulations changed then. And Williams, again, backed by Mercedes, had a pretty good car. And they had a bunch of podiums. They actually finished third in one of the years between 2014 and 2016. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Unfortunately, it might be at the back of the grid, but you never know. They might put some good performances, just like Albon has done, in the past 2 seasons, and qualify in the top 10 or finish in the top 10. So that's an interesting battle, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I think, definitely. I think that's the actual right answer because the only thing is obviously like they don't have a competitive car, but if they had a competitive car, I think that would have been the right answer because it's 2 drivers who I think there's very little to pick between them in terms of like their level and their skills. Because I think I've rated Albon quite highly over the last couple of seasons, just how good he has been in that car, and obviously we know how good Carlos Sainz is. So, and this could potentially be like a very important season for Sainz to sort of prove that he is very good. If he can get get points finishes with that Williams car, potentially he could go to a bigger team for 2026. Because I don't think he'll want to stay at the back of the grid.
Yeah, fair enough. And also Albon himself, right? I kind of felt that Albon should have been considered. I mean, obviously, nothing against Kimi. Kimi obviously seems to be a generational talent, but I felt like Albon could have been considered for the Merc seat because I think performed quite well for Williams, and he could have been considered. He probably would have been. We never know. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I think you have Max versus Lawson. We don't really expect Lawson to do that well, but the thing is this, right? He's going to get destroyed, but that's not his. I don't think they put him there because they want him to beat Max. They would have been very happy with Checo if Checo just finished higher. I don't think they would have had this conversation. I think they were last year. Checo didn't beat Max at all. He beat Max twice. He won 2 races, and the rest he got thrashed. But he was finishing second, finishing third. Sometimes not finishing on the podium, but still, he finished second in the championship. So I don't think they put him there because they want someone to beat Max. I think that's why they didn't put Tsunoda, in my opinion. because they might
Yeah.
feel that Tsunoda might be a bit more of a problem for Max. I mean, not writing Lawson off, because Lawson also is a talent. He is a very skilled driver, very talented driver, and he's shown his skill in Formula One. But I think the reason behind this is, get as much as points possible, get as much as points you can possibly get, and support Max where he needs a. If it's a
I have a
case of
hot take. I have a hot
Lawson,
take. I think
yeah, go for it.
I don't think Liam Lawson will be
In the seat.
in this seat after 20, maybe for more than one. He's not going to stay here for more than one season. I think probably. I don't think he makes probably halfway through the second season. I feel like he's going to get replaced, in my opinion.
Right now, no, I think we spoke about this. I don't think we should get dwell too much about this, because we want to keep it as a short episode.
Yeah.
But for me, the reason why they put Lawson ahead of Tsunoda, for one thing, is because I think everything depends on Max, right? And Max is giving all indications that he won't be there for long. Like he's talking about the fact that he wants to spend time with his family, do other things, and added to that, we have, which we will get into, we have all these this situation with the FIA, which he's not a big fan of. So I think they probably feel that if Max suddenly decides to leave, they have no one who has the experience to take the team forward. And Tsunoda has F1 experience. Obviously, this is his 5th season, if I'm not mistaken. But they probably want someone to learn from Max as well. So this is all just guesswork, okay? But maybe they want Lawson to learn as much as possible from Max, and then possibly move Tsunoda into the main team. Only time will tell what the actual scenario is. But that's Max versus Liam. There's Jack Doohan, who's coming in, who's apparently, again, all speculation, but he only has a limited time to prove his worth. And if he doesn't, unfortunately, he'll be put aside for Colapinto. It's kind of tough on him, because I think he would deserve an extended period of time to prove his worth. Ollie Behrman, very talented driver, who substituted 3 times last season and proved his worth, coming to Haas up against Esteban Ocon, another good driver. It'll be interesting to see how that battle plays out. Who else am I missing? I think we covered
Isaac Hadjar coming in.
Another. He almost won the championship last year, but just missed out to Bortoleto. Interesting to see. He's also. Red Bull have 3 very volatile drivers, I would say, on the way. Hadjar is also not someone who stays calm, but he's very skillful as well. So interesting to see how the Tsunoda versus Hadjar battle goes. I think So lot of interesting teammate battles for next season, which leads us on to our next topic, something to look forward to, but we'll discuss this more in detail once the season starts. But a potential 4-way fight for the championship, and if Martin can come up with something, a 5-way team battle. Just one word answer: who is winning the championship? Who do you think is winning the championship? Both championships.
I think.
Not one word answer, but keep it. What do you think? What's your feeling?
My head says that McLaren's gonna probably win, and I think Lando or Oscar will have a really good chance. But I say this every season, so I think this is the year.
This is the year,
2025, Charles Leclerc, world champion, first WDC for Ferrari since Kimi Raikkonen. But I think this is the year.
It's what, almost 20 years, huh? Almost 20 years.
18 years now, I think.
18 years, I think I'll have to agree. The thing is this, right? I have a take. If the cars are equal, I would say the best chance, I'm taking all 4 teams, the best chance would be Max and George. And I'll tell you why. Because in every other team, you have this brilliant teammate battle where you can't separate. Maybe Charles has a chance, maybe an edge, but in Mercedes' case, we don't expect, if it is the case, it could be a different story, but we don't expect Antonelli to be actually up there in the championship. He could well be, but we don't expect that, right? And in the case of Red Bull, like I said, if Lawson is ahead of Max, they tell Lawson, get out of the way, don't just let Max through, right? There's no question in that regard. But in the case of McLaren and Ferrari, they will be obliged to let their teammates race. I mean, we saw it with McLaren last year.
Yeah.
If it is McLaren who is like significantly ahead, I think in this scenario, Lando will probably win the championship because while I do think Oscar is a brilliant driver, I think over a season Lando still has the pace to beat Oscar, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a two-word answer. I would go if the cars are equal, Max. If the cars are not equal, Lando. But yeah, that's my take. We'll talk about it more in detail once the season starts. But before we wrap up, this promises to be a great season, right? This promises it has all. I mean, unless we have cursed it, but this promises to be a season for the ages.
Yeah,
and it could potentially be ruined by the organization that is supposed to be protecting and the welfare of Formula One, and that's the FIA.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you haven't seen the news, there is this new directive that has come from the FIA where if the drivers start swearing at the stewards or swearing in general, they could be potentially they could potentially be awarded penalty points, which is a system that exists right now. And if it continues, it could lead up to point deduction and even a race ban. Now, it's an interesting conversation to be had because in a way, there are some people who believe that the FIA is right to impose some kind of control in the way they treat the refereeing, the stewards basically, who do the refereeing. And I think Martin Brundle brought a very good point up when he said, you look at rugby, right? And even cricket, you have this thing where the umpire's decision is final, the referee's decision is final. You're going to argue with them. You have your feelings, whatever you go and you obviously they are not happy with it, but it's final. You don't see them going up to the umpire. I mean, very rare cases where you see them going up to the umpire or the referee and saying, what is this, what not. That is that. But then there is the other side where you want them to be human, and in racing you have emotions. In any sport you have emotions, and you're taking the human aspect from the sport. And in a case where you're just frustrated and you let something out, if that leads to a race ban, and that race, because of the race ban, you can't get points and you lose the championship because of that, it could ruin it. So what is it?
I think, I mean, obviously the idea behind this, one thing is it's for the steward, but it's saying that there's children watching Formula One now, and there's families watching Formula One, and it does make sense from an entertainment perspective. But I think the reason why people watch sport is not to just see cars go around in a circle or go around a track, or you need to see you want to see the emotions from the drivers when they win, for example. You remember, I think was it I don't remember, was it when Max crashed in Baku, or was it Bahrain, I don't remember, where he comes and he kicks the wheel.
It was Baku.
It was Baku, right? And he comes and kicks the wheel, and you see all that emotion. That is part of what makes the whole you feel the emotion of the sport, right? And for drivers, obviously it's a very, very tense situation. For any driver, you're driving at hundreds of miles an hour, and then you're speaking over the radio, and emotions can come out. Some drivers handle it better than others. For example, Yuki Tsunoda is not ideal over over the radio. But I think fining them is fine. Giving them a fine is fine. But I think trying to ban them and and make it affect the championship, in my opinion, is not ideal. But obviously the FIA has established it, so I think
that's the thing, right? I think I watched this episode of P1, with Matt and Tommy, and they were talking about this, and I saw it in multiple places where it's more or less a threat, and people might feel they're not going to actually implement it. But my question is, if that's the case, then why introduce it at all? I don't think it's just going to work as a threat. I think the only this thing will get overturned if there's actually a driver strike or something like that. The drivers are what, we're not going to take part. I don't know what you feel, but the thing is, the question is, maybe at press conferences, better it would make sense to tell the drivers, what's the and stuff like that.
100%.
But in the races, this is the age-old, reasoning that everyone gives. Vettel gave this, I think, in 2018 when Hamilton and Verstappen clashed, and a bunch of people have said this. Like, if you put a mic to a football player or a rugby player,
Exactly.
when someone tackles them and stuff, they're not going to be like, "Oh my God, you hit me! Please don't hit me." They're going to be
Exactly.
scared. And the thing is, the radios that actually the radio messages that get published, they are controlled by the FIA and
Exactly.
Formula One. That's why the messages are actually a bit. They're not messages that come out at the spot. There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
The reason is
Exactly.
they go through it to make sure that that if there are swabbers, to bleep it out. So in that case, they have a solution. It's bleeped out.
Yeah.
So I don't see what the problem is there. For the international feed. Obviously, like if you have if you're watching from, I don't know, a site or whatever, that's different. But for the international feed where most people watch, it's bleeped out. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why you have to stop it there. During press conferences, for sure, because it's live, and there's no time to do all that. And there's a bunch of different networks, recording at the same time. So in that sense, yeah. But it would be a shame. I mean, imagine going into the final third of the season or something, that you have 3 or 4 drivers in the championship fight, and then Max, because Max is not going to change 100%, right? Max is not going to change his behavior, and he just gets banned for a race. Because I think if that happens, Max just leaves. I am convinced that happens. Max retires the next day, because Max is all about this no nonsense kind of thing. We could literally lose Max Verstappen from Formula One if that happens, in my opinion. But interesting to see how that will play out. And I think if nothing gets done, also that's also kind of embarrassing for the FIA, because they already looked at. There are other problems that the FIA needs to sort out, right? Because with the stewarding and how the race rules are applied, a lot of contentious moments last year where penalties were given for certain things, but then for that same incident, someone else didn't get a penalty. So there's a lot of things to be solved, and this is not it. There are other things that need to be addressed, like the stewarding situation,
100%.
because there's a problem with not having permanent stewards, having stewards per circuit and stuff like that. So a bunch of other things to focus, in our opinion. But yeah, I think that covers most of what we are looking forward to this season. Obviously, we'll have more. The frequency of our episodes is directly connected to Ferrari's success, unfortunately.
Yes.
So whether or not we have a lot more F1 episodes will depend on whether Charles Leclerc can. Not even Ferrari's success, it's more or less Charles Leclerc's success. But to give you an example,
we'll be more consistent this year, and
it's not a me problem here. Okay, it's not me. Don't say me.
For example, definitely do a preview for the season, like a proper preview. Coming up, I think.
After testing, probably something where we have a bit more idea. Because for example, I want to say that if you want me to give an example, after Monaco 2024, the episode came out in I think in half a day.
Monaco half an hour after the race, the episode.
Monaco 2022, there's no such episode. No such episode exists.
Monaco 2022 was not a race that happened.
So but that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. If you did not check out our first episode for the year, do check it out. It could help you out. We spoke about the things we're looking forward to this year in terms of sporting events. And thank you very much for listening to us and for watching us. Until the next one, this is Shavin and Abhishek saying bye-bye and take care.